the new education architecture, which, by the way, which showed its complete bankruptcy at the AI summit. That's why Galgotia is not an incident, it is not one university. It is the failure of a model that has been brewing and being cooking and being assembled, trying to be assembled since almost last 11 years. And this model has revealed its inherent banality and stupidity on a world stage. And that should be very frightening.
The Galgotias episode, it exposes the underbelly of education. It exposes how we have come to completely distort the meaning of meaningful education.
You are getting now a higher education architecture which is for propaganda, oriented towards propaganda, which is also trying to stop social mobility.
Hello and welcome back. Today, in the latest episode of our series on perspectives, we are going to be taking up an issue that has been making headlines: the Galgotias fiasco at the India AI Summit. We are going to be asking some very tough questions about this incident. Was it just a communication failure, as the university authorities claim now? Was it a one-off event that we should not bother about and move on? These things happen. Or does it underscore a deeper malaise afflicting our education system? I have with me a special guest, a friend of mine, Professor Rohan D'Souza, who is teaching at the Kyoto University and closely tracks developments in India. Welcome to my show, Rohan. This is your first. But before I go over to Rohan, a gentle reminder for all of you who haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like our conversations, please share them with your friends and peers. Stay on. Rohan,
Yes. Thank you, Mahapatra, for inviting me to your show.
how do you understand the Galgotias incident?
Uh, okay, Mahapatra, very briefly, this is not a one off event. I would like to argue against that idea that, there was a miscommunication and that the university now has to just introspect and self correct. I don't think it's one off. I think, and I'm going to say this rather sharply, this is a paradigm problem. And what do we mean by a paradigm problem? If you look carefully at what this government has been doing for the last 10 years, they have been systematically trying to undermine public university system and delegitimize the higher educational institutions and higher research institutions like the IITs. And in their place, there is this new architecture that they're putting forward, education architecture. I sometimes even hesitate to use the word education. They're putting forward a new architecture, and Galgotia University actually represents that new architecture. And what is that new architecture? That new architecture is something like this. They are not really committed to fundamental research. They are not committed to humanities or social sciences, or even in some ways producing scholarship. Yeah, many of them are considered more correctly by many people, such as myself, as some sort of a shop. High fees or reasonably high fees. Lots of students go in and they go out, not necessarily touched by education in a meaningful sense. Yeah, and
What
yeah, sorry.
what is the meaning of education to you? Because you say They're not touched by education. So
yeah,
what basically education means?
yeah. Very good question, Mahapatra. For people such as myself, education is the challenging of common sense. If common sense was enough, if street smartness was enough, you don't need an education, right? You just move on in life and do what you have to do, because reality is what appears to you, and you basically train yourself to deal with that. Now, many of these universities, these like Galgotia and all that, they don't really challenge you to think. They don't really train you to
No,
reflect. Yeah,
let me stop you there,
yeah,
because I think you're raising a very important point.
yeah,
If education is all about challenging common sense,
yeah,
and so if someone is still successful in life, using loads of common sense he has, let's say he makes a lot of money, or let's say he renders a lot of
mm,
services to the society worth
mm,
appreciating, yet may not necessarily call him educated if he doesn't have the capability to challenge common sense. He can still be successful in life using
yeah,
common sense, but you would
yeah,
not call him educated. So
mm.
why challenging common sense is so critical, and why therefore education, or looking at education through a different lens, is so important as you are doing.
Right. Okay. Very quickly, because I want to come back again to what is the problem with how Galgotia presented themselves. Um, challenging common sense is about constructing alternate futures, that you don't accept the present as is, but you are able to construct what an alternative future, a better future, a more meaningful future might be. And actually, public university system was designed to create the thinking citizen, the reflecting citizen, because they wanted ideas of progress, they wanted ideas of improvement to help advance a nation or a country. Yeah, all right. So things like progress, advancement, uh, a more prosperous future is very much welded into the idea of education. Now, what
So
you have,
in other words, from the history of civilization, we
yeah,
learn that societies have made progress by challenging common sense,
yeah,
and they have been able to do so by focusing on the primacy of education, meaningful education, which
yeah,
is what we need more than ever before
yeah,
in the times that we are living in, and
yeah,
particularly that
mm,
whole notion of our commitment to meaningful education should have played out in the India AI summit that we hosted, in order
right,
to exude confidence among participants, in order to exude confidence among our citizens that, well, we can conquer this new technology, we can make this work for our larger interest. But the Galgotias episode, it exposes the underbelly of education. It exposes how we have come to completely distort the meaning of meaningful education. Now let's go back to the point,
yeah.
how you were trying to illustrate this with the.
I want what was important for me is three things. One is the Galgotia, I'm putting in quotes, professors kept using the word bache, children. They never said our undergraduates or our graduates are basically part of this exercise. And this is not a translation problem. You can say undergraduates, you can say graduates. It makes perfect sense even in English, in Hindi, right? They kept referring to them as children and
Bacha,
infantilizing.
not
Yeah,
chhatra.
bacha. Yeah,
Bacha,
yeah,
not
yeah,
chhatra.
yeah, yeah. No, even chatra can be a student. It can be a chatra in school. But at the higher education level, you want to use terms like undergraduates or graduates, because you want to know what is the level of interaction of the learning stage, right? Now, an undergraduate with AI is completely different from a graduate student dealing with AI. That's a different level change. Okay. Or you would say our research scholars are dealing with AI in our labs. They kept saying children. All right. So immediately tells you that there's some serious, what do you say, conceptual problems with the way Galgotia is thinking about education. All right. Now, Dr. Neha Singh, Professor Neha Singh, I'm not clear what her designation is. In many places, they refer to an assistant, many places, they refer to a professor. It's very clear to many of us who have gone through this grinding education system of BA, MA, MPhils, PhDs, postdocs, teaching, in my case, that is not the way you conduct yourself. She showed all the capacity to be at some level an influencer, all the capacity to be a product manager. She was belligerent. She was someone who conducted herself with no great nuance or sophistication that one expects from an academic. Yeah. And one would say, wow, is that Galgotia's best foot forward? In which case, there is a serious crisis. And at some point, she then admits that she's communication. She has nothing to do with AI, right? And then, which begs the question, because I went to the Galgotia site, I wanted to see who are the AI engineers they have on board, who are the big AI scientists they have. I mean, they have spent 350 crores. Now, it appears from that little investigation, which, by the way, News Laundry did an excellent job of reviewing the rise or the growth or whatever of Galgoti University, that if you look at it carefully, this is really spectacle and big buildings. There is nothing on paper that tells you that they've hired the best minds. A university should be
So,
known.
so the 350 crore that they keep claiming might be
Yeah,
actually going into, or much of it might be going into building real estate
yeah,
than a real
yeah,
knowledge
yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah. Like, who are you trying to impress with buildings rather than, you know, the star academics that you're attracting or the star scholars that you're attracting? There's no conversation on that. They keep showing that building, they keep showing the robot. This is like how you would advertise products in a mall, right? So what is worrying for many of us actually is that this notion of the student is actually the notion of a consumer. It's about paying high fees, getting your money's worth, showing you enough razzle and dazzle, but no real meaningful academic engagement. Yeah. So,
That was a
what?
good
Yeah.
phase, razzle and dazzle.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what most of the new educational institutions these days do, including schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
So,
starts from
what?
the primary level.
Yeah. So, what you get is very good buildings. They may show infrastructure, but they'll never tell you who are the big brains, who are the fantastic faculty that they have on board. That's the one, when you say Stanford or Harvard, you're not looking at the buildings, or Oxford or Cambridge, you're not looking at the the stars really of that. Well, I shouldn't use the word stars, but if at all one is to judge them, it is by the quality of the faculty that they've hired. Yeah. And we know how to judge good faculty: their publications, their speaking record, yeah, their engagement with life. So on these counts, you can quickly see that this university, Galgotia, sometimes I don't know, this new private university is not really designed for education as we understand it. It's designed for
Mhm.
something else.
We'll,
Yeah,
we'll, we'll, we'll come back to that something else.
yeah,
But
yeah.
before that, Rohan, you
Mm,
have been teaching at the Kyoto University. It's not just one of Japan's top universities, but it is also ranked amongst the world's top 20. And, it has, I believe, almost a dozen Nobel laureates it has
yeah,
produced.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Almost a dozen Nobel. How do this, uh, they build this academic resilience? How are they qualitatively different from the kind of institutions that we see here now coming up.
Okay, Mahapatra, the first thing I
Not
might
not
be
just not just not just Kyoto University, which is a
yeah,
government university, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
It
also
is, it
private.
is, it is, it is a public university. It's funded by
Yeah.
the government of Japan mostly, to a great extent. But I just want to one small caveat. I don't believe in the ranking system. As an academic, I think the ranking systems are really no way to judge an institution at all.
No, but the
Yeah.
fact that we have almost a dozen Nobel laureates coming out
No,
of there.
yes, yes.
And
That yeah,
we have seen some very cutting edge research that has come
yeah,
out of that university, especially in the space of structural engineering, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
making
yeah,
that country,
yeah,
which is so vulnerable to earthquakes, coming
yeah,
up with, alternative or countermeasures.
yeah.
Kyoto University has played a very big role.
You know, I would say one of the most important things about a good education institution, and if a government wants it to be a real meaningful education system, and it's concerned about producing informed citizens, yeah, who are willing to make a better future. One is academic freedom. What is it that good academics are attracted to? They're not attracted by big buildings, they're attracted by academic freedom and the ability to then motivate and shape another generation of thinkers, right? A lot of people say, oh, good academia is critical thinking. But what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is challenging common sense, number one. Number two, and this is something many people don't really completely fully understand. You know, when you go to, what is the difference between going to school and going to college? What is the big jump? In school, you are still under the authority and hegemony of your parents. You report to them, right? And you basically are being shaped in a certain value system that they decide. The minute you come to college, you are expected now to form your personality and form your capacity by thinking for yourself. So, the real job of a professor is not to give you information, is not to help you download new facts. The real job of a professor is to enable you to think for yourself. So, a professor is not a parent and he's not your friend. He or she is not your friend, he's not your parent either. They are someone to help you deal with something really, really uh, critical, novel, and new for yourself, which is how do I think for myself? It's a responsible act. It requires freedom. It requires discipline. It requires an ability to engage with the world in a responsible fashion, and also a fashion that you can think of new imaginations. Yeah, and that is the role of a good professor. So even if I'm teaching biology or I'm teaching physics, ultimately I'm expecting you to move the discipline forward, to move these ideas forward. And how can that be done if you're just going to repeat, if you're just going to be a copy of myself? No. A successful professor is someone who produces students that go beyond the limitations of that professor, right? So
In fact,
this model is something that is being compromised today by this turn to privatization, to treating students in an infantile manner, teaching this extreme commodification. Yeah. And ultimately, you see a lot of those kids who talk like consumers. I paid this fees for this education. It's like as if you can download an input, an input. No,
I
you are,
mean, Rohan,
yeah.
you and I went
Mm.
to Jawaharlal Nehru University. We studied
Yes,
together,
yes,
and we had some of the brilliant professors. I mean,
yeah,
professors who were recognized at a global level.
yeah,
And I remember none of our professors ever treated us as even student. They treated us as partners. They treated us as
yes,
colleagues.
yes,
We were treated very differently. Nobody
yes,
ever called us a bacha.
yeah,
Uh, and we could criticize openly. I mean, we held protests against the university. We criticized the university in public forum when they went wrong, and yet we never faced any administrative action. Of course, things have changed now in JNU, because they have done to JNU what they have done at many places. uh,
mm,
but in Galgotia, I believe a student was suspended or rusticated for criticizing the university. And what is worse, uh, I came across this research paper uh, which came out in 2020 after the Prime Minister gave a call for
mhm.
Thali Bajao.
Yeah,
There was a research paper which kind of retrofitted uh, an argument to support what the PM has done. And in
yeah,
fact, in the opening para, the synopsis itself, it makes a mention of, how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done a scientifically proven thing. And I mean, I can run this on the screen. That paper, not a single sentence in that paper is grammatically correct, properly structured. So it's like gibberish taken off
yeah,
from here and there, and it passes off as a research paper which has gotten published in a journal. And by the way, the Galgotias also claim that they have filed more patent applications than all the IITs put together,
yeah,
which also raises a very important question about intellectual property and what we are doing around it. Now,
yeah,
all of these questions have been raised, but I want to go back and
mm,
pin you down to what you said earlier. You said you don't even want to call this reshaping the education architecture. You said trying to create a new architecture, not for education, but for something else. What is that something else?
yeah. Okay. This is my own uh, uh, claim, and it's something that I have to really prove in a more rigorous fashion. But to me, what appears to be happening is something, at least in the last 11 years, which I've been studying carefully. And I'm not really a specialist on education, though I've written on it and I've begun to study it more carefully and more with some sort of considerable attention to what is happening. Um, there is definitely three things that are happening. One is you are delegitimizing existing public university system. Two, you have instituted a whole set of protocols now, like QS ranking, NIRF, all kinds of administrative ways in which you are now rewarding these new emerging universities. Okay, like Galgotia, whatever, new emerging for we'll call it private universities. These private universities, though there are some also very good private universities. I don't want to lump them together. These new emerging who are really adept at gaming these new criteria. Yeah. So Galgotia, for example, has filed a whole lot of patents, but nobody knows which one has been accepted, right?
Yeah,
There is no structure to audit the quality. There is no structure to figure out what is it exactly that what qualitative movement has been made. None. All right. But you can do brick and mortar assessments, more buildings, more this, more that, filing this, and then there's a whole set of government programs that if they address, they get higher rankings. Okay. uh, the third thing, and this is what I worry a great deal about. I think at some point, at some level, this government is committed to the idea that everyone doesn't need a higher education. They don't think everyone needs. You can do online, you can do offline courses. At NEP model, you go into a classroom, you get out when you want after 1 year, 2 years. Now, why do they're destroying group solidarity? You must remember, your peer group is very important because you learn from each other. The classroom, the batch of 88, 90, there'll be say, 30 people or 40 people. That batch is learning from each other. So if somebody is goes out, somebody comes in, you lose that dynamic, you lose that chemistry, you lose that ability to learn from each other. A classroom is a dialogue between the teacher, the professor, and the students. Yeah. And if people are moving in and out, it makes no sense. Right. So, my third worry is that besides the delegitimizing and the undermining of public universities, including the IITs, um, there is now a strong undercurrent saying everyone doesn't need a higher education. Why do you need a degree? There's this thing that, oh, Bill Gates, he never finished his education. But does Microsoft hire people without an education? Do they ever hire people without degrees? They don't. Yeah. So this whole idea that you put in this entire new ecosystem, which actually to me seems to be oriented towards propaganda based on repetition, not even memory, based on repetition, that government will say something and they will take those terms and ideas and run with it, and that's it. So you saw repeatedly, when the interviewing got a bit, I would say the journalists got little under their skin with strong questions, they quickly said, we are all for Bikshit Bharat.
Hmm.
All right, they spouted government programs, okay, Atmanirbhar. So essentially, this is looks to me like an ecosystem that is crafted around propaganda and crafted around repetition,
So
mouthing.
you were holding back. That's the
Yeah,
term. That's the term. What
yeah,
you're saying, this new architecture
yeah.
is nothing but a propaganda architecture.
It's a
You are,
propaganda architecture.
you are reducing educational institutions, or at least you are trying to reduce educational institutions and
Yeah,
the education system
yeah,
into a system for propaganda and
yeah.
continuous propaganda.
Mahapatra, propaganda being two things. Don't think for yourself, number one. Don't challenge common sense, number two. What is
Yeah,
happening right now, the present, is perfect. And if at all you want to go beyond the present, you go to the past. There's
yeah.
no
So
future
yeah.
reckoning.
So when you say don't think for yourself and don't challenge common sense, in the way manner you define education, that means you don't get educated. So you know, the 80% of people can live on 5 kilo anas, and a minuscule proportion gets educated and goes on to live life in a different way. Uh, Now, last question, Rohan, in all of
Mm,
this:
mm.
should India's middle class parents wake up to this reality? Why should this be? Why should Galgotias episode be a wake up call for our middle class parents?
Okay. Very good. I'm glad you pointed this out, Mahapatra. Here's the thing: in a modern society, there is only one thing that enables social mobility, that is education. Okay. In a feudal society, you inherit the land of your parents or your family. You are where your family is. There is no mobility. All right. In a modern society, why do parents send their children to higher education? Because they expect that their children to do better than themselves. And that is what education is supposed to do. It's supposed to take people from schools who have functioned under the authority of your parents, put them in an environment where a professor is to help you think for yourself, and then ultimately you should do better than your parents. What is happening right now in India, why the education higher education system is being dismantled, is because there is a, I think, a feeling that they don't want social mobility anymore. Right. So education is becoming expensive, degrees are becoming expensive, lots of these universities are caught in all kinds of unnecessary scandals, and at some point somebody's going to say, just go online, learn what you have to do, AI is there, and you pay less, you don't have to pay fees, and you're smarter than everybody else. That is not going to help social mobility. It's not going to help poorer people do something better with their lives and become better than their parents. So, if my father was a security guard, I want to be a bank clerk. I have moved, my generation's moved. If I'm a bank clerk, if my dad is a bank clerk, I want to be an engineer. I have moved. If I've an engineer, I want a daughter who is a doctor or a professor or someone who takes the family even higher in terms of its distinction and standing. So, right now, my own submission is this, that the new education architecture, which, by the way, which showed its complete bankruptcy at the AI summit. That's why Galgotia is not an incident, it is not one university. It is the failure of a model that has been brewing and being cooking and being assembled, trying to be assembled since almost last 11 years. And this model has revealed its inherent banality and stupidity on a world stage. And that should be very frightening. And so my thing is this: you are getting now an a higher education architecture which is for propaganda, oriented towards propaganda, which is also trying to stop social mobility. Yeah. And ultimately, it is actually, there is a belief that the next generation workforce can be skilled by all these, the new emerging private markets and institutions that will come up. Okay. Right. And that you don't really need to be a reflective individual or a citizen. Yeah. So if some startup picks you up from 12th grade and they train you, that's it. You don't need anything more than that. You don't need to know about law, art, poetry, philosophy, even the philosophy of engineering, or the technology of biology or whatever. So the
That's a
individual,
very
yeah,
that's a
is a
very
limited one.
scary, that's a very scary future you are painting
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
India's youth. And I now get why middle class parents who have no capital, who have no land,
yeah,
education is their only ticket to success,
yeah,
economic mobility and social mobility.
yeah,
They should be concerned. The Galgotias episode should be a wake up call for them. And as you very rightly used, very strong terms, banality and stupidity on
yeah,
play at a world stage.
yeah,
Yeah, and we should just not let it go as a one-off incident, but we should think deeply. More importantly, we need to act on it. Thank you very much. That was
yeah.
Professor Rohan D'Souza from Kyoto University. I'm sure you enjoyed a very unique perspective that he has presented before you. Please share our video if you liked it, subscribe to it if you haven't, and keep coming back to us in the days to come. The new series that we have titled Perspective. Rohan and I, who go back many years, we studied together both in Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we will be, taking up issues and offering you very new insights, at least unique insights and perspectives. Stay with us. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.